What do you think of what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch said today?
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting because there's been a lot of speculating and arguing going on Twitter. And it seemed like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were having those same Twitter arguments amongst themselves on trying to figure out how to fix the 49ers. Like when you look at their entire long-term plan, what I really took away was I think they were as surprised as you and I were that they were able to bring back this roster as is. I think they, as you and I had been hypothesizing since January, looked at Jimmy Garoppolo's contract and being able to retain this roster and build it up as an elephant in the room. And they were thinking that by keeping this contract, they were going to have to lose some pieces this year and try to reload, but get a rookie. They still get a rookie. Like the rookie quarterback and the rookie wage scale, they seem to be convinced was their answer. So it seemed like they were going with that route. It seemed like they were surprised that they were able to bring everybody back. And I think that also helped them really push to make a move in order to get the number 3 overall pick and hopefully get their quarterback of the future, their franchise guy.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you buy what the Niners said, that they basically were going to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, or they would have been open to trading him, but they did so well in free agency that they owe it to themselves to have a veteran quarterback who can win now?
Not necessarily. I think that the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation is still quite open-ended. Like, I still think there are like 4 or 5 teams that are still in desperate need of a starting quarterback. And whatever you want to say about Jimmy Garoppolo, he is a for sure starting quarterback that you can go into a season with and feel like I can win. I can go to the playoffs with him. So for those reasons, I feel like it's smart. It's the most prudent move for them to say we're still 100% invested, because there's going to be teams that are going to be calling about him. And if the 49ers are invested in keeping him and they're interested in protecting his value, then they have to say this. Now, I think that the scenario of keeping him now, like, it makes sense because everybody's back on a 1-year deal. We've talked about this. They have 21 of 22 confirmed positions with starters. I guess 20 if you want to include quarterback, with right guard being the only position of flux. So when you have a team that good, like I understand, because financially now Jimmy Garoppolo, it's okay for him to be your quarterback next year. It all makes sense. So from that standpoint, yes, I do understand it. When they go on and on about how they need him next year and how they want him to be their guy next year, I don't necessarily buy that 100% just because of the nature of the market and Jimmy Garoppolo's value after the draft, depending on how that goes, could be at an all-time high.
Okay, so we don't need to talk about Jimmy too long because we're here to talk about the rookies. But I think we should start by talking with Jimmy. And in the sense of, like, how do you see this ending for Jimmy in San Francisco? What's the end game here?
I look at the end game for him with 3 different scenarios. The first scenario I see for him is that it all ends well for him. He starts next year. He has a good season, similar to 2019 in terms of his stats. The Niners maybe win a playoff game, or they go to the playoffs and lose in the first round. And he has a really solid season, and he eventually gets traded in similar fashion to Alex Smith, maybe not as much, but maybe for a couple 2s and a 4th. And he goes somewhere and he signs a contract, and he's the short-term, long-term guy for that next franchise. Because, I mean, he'll be 31, so they're not going to pay him like a 7-year deal, but he gets a 3-year extension. And for that short term, for that regime and coaching staff, he's their guy. So I see that as one scenario. The second scenario I see is that this gets ugly fast. I mean, Matt Barrows just went on I saw a radio clip of Matt Barrows starting to talk about Jimmy's side of the story, and which is something that we haven't heard much. And he said that they've been hurt by the fact that the Niners organization, or he said that he feels that the Jimmy Garoppolo camp feels like the Niners haven't protected him that much in terms of, okay, occasionally John Lynch goes on radio and says Jimmy Garoppolo's our guy, blah, 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 but they're openly flirting with everybody, and his name is constantly with bad press and whether he's their quarterback and stuff. So from that standpoint, like, I think it could be a leak, kind of gets ugly, and he eventually wants out, and he gets out and he goes somewhere, and maybe he has a good season, maybe he doesn't. And then the third scenario I see for him is He goes out, he stinks it up. The rookie takes his job, thus ending any projection of Jimmy Garoppolo being a starter in the NFL for 2022 or 2023. It would have to be him. He would have to go somewhere, take a 1 year, $7 million, $8 million deal, maybe have to sit as a backup, or maybe have to go compete with a job for a young guy. But I think that would really kill his chances of somebody bringing him in and saying, this is our starting quarterback.
Okay, let me tell you real quick my take. Tell me what you think, and then we'll move on to other stuff. I think the Niners have maybe some question as to, is my connection terrible?
No, it's not too bad.
Okay. I think there's just some question as to the readiness of this quarterback that they're going to draft for whatever reason, and because there may not even be mini camps and OTAs. So I think they feel like when Jimmy loses his job officially, then they'll trade him. But until this rookie goes on the field and proves that he's ready, they have to keep Jimmy.
That's fair. I don't like say like, oh, that's not a unlikely scenario. I actually tweeted it out the day of the trade. I don't know if you saw it because I know you've been vacationing in Tahoe, but everybody immediately latches onto the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith situation. But if you remember the year before in 2016, there was the Sam Bradford, Carson Wentz situation. And that's where I think maybe the Niners could be in play. Like Carson Wentz, if you remember, started one preseason game, I want to say, then he got hurt. And then the Eagles traded Sam Bradford for a 1 and a 4 to the Vikings because Teddy Bridgewater had the catastrophic knee injury. And so Vikings were desperate. So the Eagles unloaded Sam Bradford, who was making $18 million at the time, for a 1 and a 4, and they started the season with Carson Wentz. Now, the details are going to be different, but it's kind of the same highly paid, often injured starting quarterback that gets moved because rookie starter is the incumbent guy that's going to take the job over. It's a similar context of situation. So from that standpoint, I don't think that's crazy. And I think that's very possible. That could be a scenario where somebody's starter gets hurt, like Indianapolis Colts. They're kind of a win now team right now. Carson Wentz gets hurt. They have the money to make a move for Jimmy Garoppolo. Do they want to risk a season with Jacob Eason because Jacoby Brissett's gone? That's where it makes sense. Go trade a pick to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Just like that, the Chicago Bears. What happens if Andy Dalton gets hurt in camp? Right. Go make a move to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Washington football team, Ryan Fitzpatrick, or whoever that guy is gets hurt in camp. Go make a move to get Jimmy Garoppolo. So from that standpoint, I 100% agree with that line of thinking too. And that should be scenario number 4 of what could happen to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay, enough of Jimmy.